This weekend is Shabbat Tzedek, a time to honor the legacy of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. In the Torah, we are deep into the story of our escape from bondage in Egypt, and this feels like a perfect moment to highlight Reverend King's work and words. The part of the Torah that Rabbi Benjamin just read for you told us about God's encouraging promise of freedom to the people Israel. But the section ends on a low note. The people could not hear those encouraging words from Moses because of two things: a kotzer ruach, a constricted spirit, and avodah kasha, gruelingly hard labor. I think many of us feel both of these things in 2021. Exhaustion and overwhelm are the most common emotions I hear when I talk to others. And to be honest, they're the most common emotions I experience myself. Between the endlessness of this pandemic and the state of politics in the United States, it has felt like an almost endless slog through divisive times lately. My teacher, Rabbi B'nai Lapp, has a theory about moments like this, a theory that she calls crash theory. In short, it goes like this. Every person or society has a master story that it tells about itself. In America, part of our master story has been the idea of the American dream, that hard work can breed success for anyone who tries hard enough. Another part of our master story lately has been that of being part of a multicultural democracy. And the part that I'd like to talk about today, in the context of Reverend King's legacy, is the master story that we have in this country, that civil rights for Black Americans was won in the 60s. You see, Rabbi Lappy's theory is that every master story eventually crashes and burns. This is not because they're bad, but rather because we are constantly changing and moving as people. Nothing stays the same. Not us, not our circumstances, not the people around us. And when our master stories crash, there are only three responses to a crash. Responses that Rabbi Lapp actually attributes to Darwin. We either die, we migrate, or we adapt. So let's look at option one. We in America can do what the Israelites do in the Torah this week. We can shut our ears to the hope of newness and change in this moment. We can angrily say to anyone who will listen that there is nothing wrong with America, that there is no sickness of racism deep inside our society. We can double down on that master story, on that fictional American dream that, if we are to be honest with ourselves, only ever allowed some people to flourish. Option one is an easy response. After all, we know this narrative by heart. We can keep embracing that lie, and we can build walls to protect our master story from ever being questioned. But remember, option one is the option where we die. In order to keep embracing our broken master story, we would have to cut off pieces of ourselves, pieces of our brothers and our sisters in the form of Black and brown Americans who live with and suffer under the denial of America's systemic problems every single day. To double down on our story of an America that just needs to move on past the divisiveness would ignore the cancer of racism that we have not yet excised and would merely leave it to multiply and fester. Option 1 will surely kill us in time and render us a husk of what we kept saying we wanted to be. Of course, we could go option 2. Option 2, according to Rabbi Lapp, says that America is irrevocably broken. Option 2 is the throw the baby out with the bathwater option. Option 2 would tell us that everything that we knew about America was a lie, so in order to combat it, we must abandon the old and start anew. There are many different viewpoints in option 2. Some of these people talk about moving to Canada or Europe or Israel. When they talk about fighting, they talk about tearing down everything. These are the separatists and supremacists, the ones who point to America's many failures as a multicultural democracy as proof that it could never happen. Option 2 has some rewards of its own. If you take option 2, you don't have to deal with the problems of the real world. You can just leave and go somewhere else. Or you can tear it down and start anew, but that only happens if you're the one who comes out on top. But we all know that other places, whether Canada, Israel, or Europe, have their own issues that cause their master stories to crash. And we also know that tearing something down doesn't ensure that what you build in its place will be equitable. The new paradigm may last for a while, but as with all paradigms, it too will crash again and leave us very much right where we started. But there's an option 3. The option 3 is the option of our prophets and our sages, among them Reverend King. There's a story in the Mishnah of a rabbi who asks his students what the most important quality someone should cultivate is. He gets many answers: a good heart, a good eye, being a good friend. But Rabbi Shimon is the one with the correct answer. He says, Haro'eh et hanolad, which can be loosely translated as the ability to see what is currently being born. Reverend King was an exemplar of someone who had Haro'eh et hanolad. He was able to look unflinchingly at the state of our country and saw that a new age needed to be doulad into existence. He saw the kotzer ruach, the narrowness of spirit, and the avodah kasha, the crushing work that faced Black Americans, and like Moses in our story today, became a spokesperson for everyone's liberation. This option 3, however, is the least safe of the 3 options. When you take option 3, there will be many, many option 1 people who will loudly accuse you of desecrating our master story. There will be option 2 people telling you that change is futile when you're frustrated at how slow and slogging the work is. Option 3 is also painful because the only way to go option 3 is to do what the option 1 and option 2 people are unwilling to do. Option 3 people must look clearly and closely at the faults and failings of the things that we love. They must look directly at the cancer festering where it shouldn't be. We must be willing to get our hands dirty and to cut it out carefully and deliberately, while all the while sparing the good things that we know still remain and giving them more room to grow. We are in a time today where more than ever, we need to cultivate the Haro'eh et hanolad of brave option 3 people like Reverend King. Let me be clear. Option 3 is not nor will it ever be centrism, which Reverend King was sickened and frustrated by. Option 3 is instead the courage to envision and speak into being true justice and liberation in our country today. Racial equality, an end to systemic disenfranchisement, an end to the cycles of incarceration, poverty, and war. If we are to take option 3, we too must have the courage that Reverend King had to break unjust laws, to stand in solidarity with those who have been wronged and disenfranchised, to put ourselves and our reputations on the line to do the right thing, even when our lives are threatened because of it. Because the reality is, only option 3 has the potential to bring wholeness for each and every one of us. Wholeness in Hebrew is shlemut, and it is related to peace, shalom. Only by constantly renewing and retelling America's master story to enfranchise more people each time we tell it. Only by stripping away people's kotzer ruach and avodah kasha can we bring all of us together to the moment of liberation at the sea. Moses does this throughout the book of Exodus for the Israelite people. Reverend King did this until the premature end of his life. And we are the ones who must take up this mantle of leadership in America today. Shabbat Shalom.